already had a couple goals. We've got some goals for your brother. We've got some goals for giving. We've got some goals for learning. There's some goals for kind of life for you that, kind of have to figure out what that looks like. There's a goal around moving. Great. That's all just part of the plan. You build that up. And then the biggest challenge is going to be getting past your own brain. Like, can I really do this? Like, am I okay?
And also, I come from a family that worked until they died. So the thought of not working, but I'd still be working part-time, it just doesn't seem right to stop having a job so early.
Yes, we call it the head trash. This is the stuff that just says, and we all have it. But the question is, for those family members that worked for life, were they happy? Often the answer is no.
Welcome to the Child Free Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
We've got about an hour to hang out together, and I've got everything you submitted, and you get a whole report. What would be the best usage of this time? If we talked about or solved one or two problems, what would it be?
Oh, I wish I had my form out. Total blank right now. Put 60% of my portfolio in fixed index annuities.
Okay. So why do you want to do that?
Because I'm thinking of retiring soon, and I'm going to need the money, or believe I will. So it's time horizon and uncertainty and risk, because I am in stock mainly.
Mm-hmm. So where'd you come up with an annuity? Because that's normally when people ask me that question, that's because somebody has said that's the way they should do it.
So I went to a financial advisor, and they said, this is what we suggest. And annuities sound good. I think insurance companies make money on it. That's why they do it.
Yep.
And that it may not be in my best interest.
Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate thing is a lot of times annuities are sold as a solution because that's how they're making their money. That's how they get paid. And, the only time I recommend an annuity, there's one fixed index annuity I recommend, and it comes with a long-term care rider, but you have some long-term care insurance already.
Right. I do have long-term care insurance.
And the only time I recommend an annuity is when somebody's kind of like I feel like I better say kind of nervous Nelly. They're worried, hey, this is all going to come to an end or whatever else. And I don't know, kind of tell me about you. I mean,
even with the recent monthly fluctuations, I'm okay.
Okay.
It's but then again, my time horizon was longer in 2008. So I didn't worry about market fluctuations as much. I don't monitor the portfolio per se. I do a financial independence worksheet each month, so I do know what my balances are doing, but I feel uncertain.
About what?
As how I should be investing this money term. Okay, I got a cancer diagnosis in April. And so it's everything's turning out great, but that makes me think longevity, will I really live that long on these predictions that they run for me?
Okay. So let's pull back a little bit. So, I saw in here that you kind of want to retire in a couple of years and move to Arizona. Is that kind of still what you're thinking?
It's Arkansas.
Arkansas, sorry.
Yeah, Arkansas. So yes, that's what I want to do. And it's when do I want to do it? Can I do it? I think I can do it. I'm only 62.
So ideally, when would you do it? Would you do it now if you could?
I would do it at 64.
Why 64?
Because I could sell my house and live on it's paid for house, live on the income for 3 years until I hit 67 and can draw Social Security.
Well, going on Social Security at 67 is an option. It may not be the best option. We tend to recommend folks wait till 70, but that's an age thing. The question is, ideally, when would you retire? You had your choice.
It depends on the day at work. I went through a lot of transition. My company got bought. They basically closed down my office with few select people still remaining.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning a new system. I'm in a cyclical industry. I'm not sure they can even do what I was doing historically. I'm kind of pigeonholed in a specific counting area. Yes, I'd like to retire now.
Okay. Let me ask it a different way and just kind of check. So you said your company, did a whole bunch of kind of reorg. If they had laid you off, would you have been happy or sad?
I could go either way with it, but happy is my first thought.
Okay.
But I could have taken the package. So I had an option to take the package, or I had an option to say I didn't want to join the new team.
Okay.
But I did want to join the new team because I felt like I was too young to retire. But then I got the cancer diagnosis, and it made me rethink what's important.
Mm-hmm.
The cancer diagnosis was stage 1, caught real early. So it's not going to limit my lifetime as much as when I was originally thinking about our conversation.
It sounds like you're in that transition. Like, by the way, very normal. Kind of like something happened in life. Should I do I want to keep doing what I'm doing? You're in that period. That's 100% normal. If you retired this year, let's just kind of play it out as an example. What would you do with your time?
Oh, my retirement dream is take courses at the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
They're free. They don't charge senior citizens. I enjoy learning recreationally. I read all the time. And the campus is hilly, so it'd be great exercise each day going to classes. A fan of the sports teams, so I could attend ball games, could possibly have cousins come in and attend those, or even my brother come in and attend games. So it's a more enjoyable place to be as I envision.
Okay.
It's been 12 years since I've lived there, and places do change. And how I view my past can tend to have a positive tilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what reality would be.
Well, but that's true about most folks. I mean, let's be real. We all have a kind of a picture in our mind, and that might or might not be reality. Do you have a place you like? Do you have a town you would move to? Do you have like an idea where you'd go?
Thought about maybe getting a duplex so I could rent out half, or if my brother needs to live with me, he could live in the other half of the place, or getting a house. Or from a financial viewpoint, I thought about just renting.
Yep. I'm a big fan of renting. If we could figure it out and say, okay, by the end of the year, you're retired, you're moving to this place in Arkansas, you're enjoying your new life, that'd probably be a good idea.
Yes.
Okay. What's holding you up from making that decision?
The fact that I'm not going to have an income coming in.
Okay.
I don't have a job. Job gets me up and out of bed every morning, and I enjoy it. I get a lot of positive feedback from the work, the social interaction, the pay is great. That's what's holding me back.
Have you thought about doing a different job, maybe something part-time in retirement just to like have fun with?
I have, but still making that jump, I guess I would need to know how much part-time income I would need, because I'm going to take a huge hit moving back to Arkansas regardless.
Why so?
I'm in an industry that pays incredibly well,
Mm-hmm.
and that industry doesn't exist in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville.
Well, I'm kind of going like, what if you did a different job? Like, I don't know, become a librarian or do something fun with the edge. Like, do something you enjoy. Because you talked about, I like the people, I like the interaction, not necessarily what you would do for the money.
I love accounting. Yes, I could be a cashier at Lowe's. That would be okay with me. But that pulls in minimum wage, maybe a little more. And is that enough to supplement the income I can get off my portfolio?
Well, I'm actually thinking you don't need extra income. I'm trying to decide first kind of what life do you want to live and then plan around that. I mean, you've done very well saving over time.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. I highly encourage you to schedule a Child Free Wealth checkup. During this time, you're going to get a couple of forms to fill out that include your life and financial plan. We'll review them, And then we're going to have a meeting and go through them with you. We're going to give you some advice and things to work on and talk through things to make your finances simpler so your life can be amazing. You can schedule yours by going to our website, childfreewealth.com, and clicking the Schedule Now button.
I guess I needed to hear that.
Well, I mean, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it says you've got like a $1.2 million net worth
And in my mind, it's 900,000.
because we're ignoring the house. But that's normal. But I mean, if you're going to move, you're going to sell the house.
And if I move now, I was going to use that house income to live off of.
That's a mental accounting thing. And we'll come back to like which money we use for what. But the bottom line is you sell the house, you have $1.2 million. However, we use it.
Okay.
You've done very well.
Nice.
How much do you think your expenses are going to be per month in the new place?
I know I do Every Dollar app. And so I know what my expenses run, and they run like between 60 and 70,000 a year.
Including the house?
The house is paid for. So that includes property taxes, insurance, utilities. I have the long-term care expense. That's a big one in my monthly budget. I've had medical. That's been high. But yeah, 60 to 70,000 a year is what I live on with a paid-for house.
Okay. And you think it'd be similar in the new place?
I do. I think I rented before buying this house, and it was around $1,800 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to live off of 60,000 a year, and I found it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But 60, 70,000, I do think is a reasonable projection.
Are you going to like do a whole lot of travel or any other big expenses when you're in retirement?
The only thing is buy a new car that will parallel park and has safety features.
Yep. But that's a one-time purchase. I mean,
it's a one-time purchase. My big bucket list trip was Japan, and I did that when I had the opportunity, when I had the money and the time. And my dad was military, so we traveled, and so I've been to all 50 states. I love being in America with English spoken, so I'm not big on traveling abroad. I don't have a desire to travel, but I do like cruises. But no, going to school, learning new things, that's what excites me. Excites me.
So if we figure kind of like a $6,000 a month expenses, which is, $72 a year, that probably gets you to the life you're looking for. Does that make sense?
It gives me the life that I have now, which is I can buy whatever I want whenever I want. I can do whatever I want to do, except I work, so time-wise, I don't have the time. But even if I had the time, I'd still want to go to classes and learn.
Right. And that's a great benefit. Actually, quite a few states have that where like over 65 or over 60 or whatever age it is, you get to take free courses. So, I mean, I'm 100% with you on that. My wife and I collect degrees they're like, it's just, something to collect, but okay.
That's what I did with my certifications. I did it just to do it.
That's fair. And you have a pension, did I see that?
The company that got acquired did away with their pension a couple of years ago, but it transferred to an insurance company. Do have pension out there, and
about $10K a year I have down.
Yeah, $10K a year over a 10-year period, 10 years certain, and like $126,000 if I do a lump sum.
Yep, and we'll come back to when we go into retirement. There's a debate on which one's the better. Interestingly enough, for most people, the answer is to take the lump sum.
And I was leaning toward that just because that money's growing and there'll be something left over.
So here's what happens. If you don't take the lump sum, effectively, they're buying an annuity for you. So if you wouldn't buy the annuity yourself, why would you have them buy it?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Now, do you have an annuity also? Because I saw that in here.
I did. After talking to this advisor, I went to my current advisor and asked him about it. And he said, don't put much in it. But I did do $100,000, which has an income rider. It would have earned more if I had left it in the market, even if the market goes up and down. But it gave me, I know I'm getting $10,000 a year. So it made me feel safer to have just a little money in this annuity. Whether or not I needed it is debatable, but it's done. It is, and it will provide. When my company got acquired, they switched to 401k providers. So Fidelity, when I went in to see Fidelity, they pushed annuities to match the gap between my income and my expenses. So I've heard annuities mentioned numerous times, except with my present advisor, I was the one that brought up the annuities to him.
Keep in mind, who pays the advisor makes a big difference on their answers, and the way I always say it is you want to ask them how your plan is different because you're child free, and most of them don't know.
And they don't.
Right.
Which is why your service is cool for us that don't have kids to get help.
Yeah. And in general, my advice is if you're going to work with a planner, I want you to pay them, and then they're not being paid to sell you stuff, which is unfortunately what you've run into a couple times already. Is, the advice gets jaded by how they make their money, and that's where it becomes a challenge.
But finding an advisor that will invest my money and not be assets under management seems to be difficult.
It is. And that's why we actually do a flat rate. So the way we do it is we charge $10K a year. It's a comprehensive financial plan, includes investment and taxes and estate planning, all that. And we do that because most of our child-free folks want to die with zero. And if you want to die with zero, if you're paying a percentage of your assets, there's actually a conflict of interest there.
And I don't know that I want to die with zero. This is part of the problem is I have a brother who has no savings, no pension, no retirement, awful with money. And if I die before he does, I'd like to, okay. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked to an attorney and I got a trust started. And in the trust, I said, if I die, provide my brother with $40,000 a year unless he goes into a nursing home or becomes incapacitated, at which time, no money. So I don't want to die with zero until he's dead. And once he's dead, all my money goes to the Alpena School District, but that it's not important to me that they get money.
Okay. So we want to make sure your brother's okay. Yeah, I had seen the stuff on the trust, and it looks like the estate plan you had uploaded was from like 2019. So I take it you updated it since then?
He's writing it now.
Okay.
So I am working on updated. I found a corporate trustee.
Okay.
And getting the trust and getting all that in place in case I do become incapacitated myself.
Is that trustee going to be serving as your medical power attorney, financial power attorney also?
Financial power, but not medical. Medical is still my brother. I'm thinking of getting a pastor or friend, say my brother dies or whatever, finding someone, but it's corporate trustees, a bank, and they don't do medical power of attorneys, which is fine.
Yeah. So just so you have an option, we are launching a service later this year that we're actually going to service child-free folks, medical power attorney, financial power attorney, trustee, and executor, because the issue is, do you have people you trust to do all of those roles?
The acting as trustee is interesting. So that's included in the 10,000 fee?
We actually, it is included in 10,000 fee, or you can get it separately. But what we're doing is we're actually setting it up as a monthly service for everybody. But we actually do emergency response with that. So for example, middle of the night, we get a call, you're in a hospital. Hey, we're going to fax over a copy of your medical power of attorney, your medical records, serve as that power of attorney. That's all part of it.
What about paying bills and property taxes and all that?
That's the financial power of attorney. So that's where the financial power of attorney would do those type of components. Same concept, just different piece of paper.
So the trustee service can be bought separately from is it financial planning service?
Yep.
On the trustee service, I become incapacitated. They have financial power of attorney. They will then take those assets and invest them as they'd like to see.
They manage everything. So, everything, paying the bills for the house, for right now, you have the house to make sure the lawn is mowed, things like that, to paying your medical bills, everything else. The way we do that is we actually charge on an hourly basis for actual hours done. So if they have to, represent you in court or something, it's by hour, or pay the bills or everything like that. Because the challenge with trust services is, depending on which one you ended up with, once again, it goes back to a percentage-based model. in most cases.
Yes, it's a 1.25% model.
Right. So on $1 million, that's a large number. You're talking about $12,000 to $15,000 a year just for managing the money. And then the question is, are they doing the other things? Like, for example, if you go into,
it's included in that 1.25% includes everything.
Doesn't include the medical though.
Yes, that's a true statement.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just a balancing act, because the reason I was bringing that up is I saw right now your brother is listed as your power of attorney for medical and financial. And then I saw in the notes, hey, he's not the best at managing that stuff. So I was like,
Yeah,
those two.
why, doesn't go well.
Yeah. It's great when you have family you can rely on. It's also, do you want to rely on it? Are they best served for it? There's a lot of ways you can do that. But you would like to make sure your brother's okay while he's alive.
And not in a nursing home or incapacitated himself.
Okay. So if he gets to go to a nursing home, money, he gets nothing.
He gets nothing.
So he would be on Medicaid and Medicaid care. You're okay with that? Okay.
I'm okay with that.
All right. So if we said, hey, we want to leave him $40,000 a year, that's fine. And is, the hard part there is for how long, but we'll come back to the math on that. But, that probably means you need, I don't know, $500,000 to $1 million to be able to give to him. And then the rest, if you have extra, it would go to the school, but it's not a priority.
Right.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Because you're not really saying, hey, my brother's going to get, if I give him $3 million, he gets a better life, because you're limiting it to a certain amount each year.
Yes, I'm limited. He's not going to get rewarded for not saving.
Okay.
But he's going to have money to supplement his own Social Security so that he can live pretty well.
That's fair. You need to be mindful that it may or may not impact him on getting, other services if he needs it. So this is one of those questions about how is the money coming to him. He doesn't have any special needs or anything.
No, he doesn't.
Okay. So one of the issues is when he has a guaranteed income coming from a trust, it may be counted against him if he goes to qualify for something like Medicaid or other social support services. Just got to be aware of that.
How would I get around giving him money without it going against his...
Is he in Texas?
He's in New Mexico, but he moves around. He's a restaurant manager.
Yeah, so it's going to be state by state, what they're allowed to get money for versus not. And the way you can do it is you can have the trust pay for specific things rather than giving him money. So, for example, it pays for his medical bills. It could pay for his housing, other things. But that is not money that he can just use any way he wants, which then gets accounted for differently depending on which state he's in. The hard part is the actual planning around this depends on which state he's going to be in, which we may not know.
I think he'll end up in Arkansas too. Okay. But you're right. It's hard to plan because I have no clue where he will end up in.
Yeah, but you may want to consider, and this is one of those you can talk to the attorney about, is rather than giving him direct money, is saying, hey, this money is set aside for him for housing, medical, that type of things. And then he can get the money from the trust as he needs throughout that. Especially if you're worried that the money might not be used well.
The money, I don't believe will be used well, but I don't want to be paying his medical either.
Okay. What would you like him to use the money for?
I feel like he can use the money for whatever he wants, the way I have it structured now.
Okay.
If I start specifying what I'm willing to pay, medical is not one of the things. Like I said, since he didn't save on his own, if he didn't take care of his health on his own, I don't feel responsible for paying those amounts.
Okay. So then the balancing act becomes, all right, then he's got a $40,000 a year income on top of everything else, which will impact him on what he qualifies for other things. It's just a reality check, and that's fine, but it's just something to be aware of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It becomes a challenge in how to make sure your wishes are followed and, everybody's taking care of the way it is. That is what a trust is for. It's just, it can be kind of one of those challenges of the balance between the financial side and the legal side, and how do you get something that works the best for everybody?
Yeah, that is a challenge.
Okay, let's even kind of assume, so you're not dying with zero. We want to give $500,000, $1 million to your brother. But anything more than that is not a great answer. Is that fair? Kind of like, I mean, dying with 6 million is not going to make your life better.
No, I don't know. Yeah, no.
Okay.
And 1 million is like my magic number. And so it's like I want to preserve that 1 million
For what?
for me to live off of.
Okay. You have 1.2 million. And if you live off that and it goes down to $900,000, is it going to freak you out?
No, not if I'm already in retirement and using it.
Okay. So let me grab my screen because I want to walk through, and it sounds like you've seen some of these. But I've got it down. You got 1.2 million. What I built in here is I said, okay, what happens if you retire this year? All right, we got $6,000 a month for expenses. Your retirement health care, there's always a cost there, long-term care. We've got the cost in there. This is just selling off your house. And what we end up with is
Wow.
Run 1,000 simulations, you're dying with $9 million.
No way.
Okay. Well, it's just math.
Yeah, with the portfolio invested like it is and
Okay. So let me show you that. So
markets and all that.
on average, you're invested 75, 25 ish. You've got a little more cash there, but on average, that's returning about 9.6%.
As a how? No.
On average. That includes dividends plus capital gains. So let me show you. So what we end up with, if we go to 2026, you've got $20,000 coming in. It's got a little more. Does the pension and the annuity have a cost of living rider, or does it go up?
The pension does not, which is why I was thinking lump sum and investing. The annuity does not once I annuitize it.
Okay. We'll come back. We'll probably change that out, but just for the minute, we have your expenses. Your total for the year for 2026 is close to $90,000 because we've got the insurance premiums, the healthcare. So in actuality, you have more than $6,000 a month to spend because we're counting for the insurance separately. So this is actually assuming you're spending more money than you ever had planned, not by a lot. But what ends up happening is, we're at a negative each year when we're in retirement, $60,000, $70,000. But on average, your portfolio return, so now we've taken the house, put it in the market, is over $100,000.
But the market may have historically returned 9%, but I just can't imagine it continuing to do so.
And that's why what we do is we run 1,000 simulations from the market is better than ever to worse than ever. And if you run the 1,000 simulations, it says at 90, and who knows? I mean, you might live a little longer, younger, whatever. You die with $9 million. There's a range between 5 and 15, which is kind of like the 25 to 75. That's assuming the market does better than ever or worse than ever. And even if it's like super bad, it says you're dying with $1.5 million.
So I guess my fear is I retire and it goes super bad. And that's when I need the money. I need the money early in the portfolio and, back to running near zero or out of money.
Right. The most challenging period for somebody who retires is the first kind of 5 years after retirement, because that's when, if the market gets hit pretty hard, it hurts you. But let's be real. We're already down this year. So these numbers are actually based on the market being down. We're running these numbers. We're down 10, 15% for the year, and it still works.
Amazing.
Here's how I look at it. Let's just look at basic math. And I'm saying, all right, the chances you're going to have to change something, the first thing you would change would be your expenses. You said, hey, I need $6,000 a month to live on, including your insurance and all that. I've got it closer, 7 plus. So I got a little extra in there. So you can kind of cut back a little on your expenses. But right now, we also have it set as you're getting Social Security at 67. I'd recommend 70, but we'll come back to why that. And what happens is we take your house and we now invest the house. Now we've got a little more towards the portfolio. You can adjust this. So if we decided, hey, we want to go like a little less risk, 60-40, the annual return's 8%, fine. If you want to do a fixed index annuity, on average, you'll take out about 6% per year. But the problem there is it's not going to give money to your brother, depending on how we structure it. It may or may not. But either way, you're okay.
Nice.
Now, by the way, there's some things in your investments. I'd prefer you have some more international. There's some tweaks, whatever. But, you've got the financial wherewithal to do what you want to do.
It's just doing it.
It's changing your mindset around it.
Right.
We always say most of our work is on the life or behavioral side. The math is the easy part. The other thing that's happened is you've got long-term care insurance. Now, by the way, it may or may not keep up with the full cost of long-term care. So one of them had a 5% rider, one of them didn't. I looked like you had like 3 different policies. So you may have to cover a little bit of long-term care is what it's saying here. But that's also a safety net at the end. So the way we do it, we build a safety net that said long-term care. We tend to put off Social Security until 70, little cash cushion, which in this case, that cash cushion would actually be the money for your brother. So if we set aside X amount of money for your brother, that's money you cannot spend. That's what you want to go to your brother. Then you can spend the rest and still live your life as best you can. If we actually took the money out of the pension and whether or not you take out the annuities is another option, you'd have more that you could invest in the market. You'd actually end up dying with more money.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second there. And I want to ask you, how does that feel?
Unbelievable. As trying to wrap my mind around the possibility that I'm going to be okay. And even invested as I am invested now, without being more conservative, I'll still be okay. Yeah,
I mean, your stuff is currently at Merrill Lynch.
It is.
So you're paying them some fee there?
Yes, 1%.
Okay. So, there's some tweaks I would do on the investing. But by the way, every financial planner has a tweak on those. That's less of what I'm worried about. What I'm trying to solve for you is what life do you want to live and how do we get you there? And when I was talking about like, what do you want to do in retirement? What do you want your job to be? All that. It's more about like, okay, this is actually possible. How do I figure out how to make this happen? And the answer is you can retire whenever you want.
Even without having more in cash or things like that?
So people worry about kind of having cash and things like that because they're like, well, how do I get my money? And what we try to do with our clients is we like to give you about a year of expenses in cash so you don't have to worry about what the market does. So part of what needs to be done in here is some tax planning. There's some opportunities there. But what we do is we set aside a year of expenses. So $80,000 or even $100,000 if you want a little more in cash, and the rest stays invested. And the reason we do that is because now we're trying to figure out the right combination between stocks and bonds so that you're paying the least amount of taxes. Because you're going to end up paying less taxes on long-term capital gains and your own income, all of that. So it's not having more cash is not necessarily better because it's now throwing off income, which gets taxed higher. And what'll happen is you have $1.2 million you can live off of. What parts in the...
A lot of that's in a Roth, so I'm not going to... Should I be taking from the Roth?
The Roth is the last one we're going to take from. So we're going to take from your taxable brokerage first, then your traditional, then your Roth.
But the Roth does no good if my brother dies and it goes to the school, the Roth does no good.
Your brother wants the Roth money to him. Okay. So the Roth money is best to give to humans. The traditional money is best to give to charities.
But does the Roth have to be emptied in 10 years or?
So this is where it gets interesting. I saw that question about trust. There's a thing called a see-through trust that will have it act as him. Yes, it's going to be the 10-year thing, but the way you can set up the trust is depending on which bucket you give him in that trust, you can make different choices around taxes. You can design it so that essentially your brother is going to be getting everything tax-free.
That would be nice.
Yeah, it's one of those like I don't want to go completely into it right this second because it's a little bit which bucket comes first, all that, but that is absolutely possible. And the other thing we can do is there's actually a concept called a charitable remainder trust, where you can give the money to charity, but then your brother gets that fixed income for life. And then whatever's left over goes to the charity. That's probably what I would recommend in this case. The other bonus of that is you can do that while you're alive and get the tax deduction.
I guess I don't understand how the charity remainder trust would work, and how would I get a tax deduction from it?
So the way it works is you tell the charity, and by the way, don't quote me on the numbers because it's a math equation. But we say, hey, charity, I'm going to give you $500,000. And then there's a math equation that says each year we're going to take out, and then based on what the math says, there's an IRS chart that says, hey, at the end, they're going to get X amount of money. You get a deduction for that amount. The charity essentially says, all right, I know I'm getting money eventually. I just don't know how much. Now, if your brother dies earlier, they get more money. I mean, it's kind of how it works. If he lives forever, they get less. But that's why there's that math equation for the IRS.
So the charity gets money in the end, if there's any money.
Mm-hmm.
Die, brother gets the set amount each year.
Yep.
And that's not taxable to him?
Well, what's going to happen is you're probably going to give that as part of your estate, and you can give him $13 million without tax. Now, if you give him your traditional IRA, that is taxable to him. But the Roth IRA, or what's in your taxable brokerage, that can go to him tax-free.
So do I set up the trust to pick an account to pay him out of?
That's going to be part of the structure with this. I'd have to sit down with your attorney and kind of walk through it, but you've actually got a bunch of different accounts. I got like 7 or 8 different accounts.
But they're all IRA, 401k.
Yeah. So which one he gets is going to be important to him. And you're going to want him to get either the Roth or the brokerage. And that actually may make the argument that you should be doing some Roth conversions throughout your retirement.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I stopped contributing to my Roth last week because my income was going to be high. And
yeah, that's fine for now. What I tend to do, though, is I tend to look at the state you're in. And Texas is a no income tax state. If you're going to move to a state with income tax.
And I am. Arkansas's got income tax.
It may make more sense to do some Roth while you're there. But the whole point is, and by the way, I'm not going to give you an exact answer on this because you got to create a tax plan that over the next 30 years pays the least amount of tax over the 30 years versus 1 year over another. What will realistically happen is you will do some Roth conversions each year throughout your life. What tends to happen with people that are child free is there's actually a point where you can convert too much to Roth, because if you're not going to use the money, then you're paying taxes on stuff you'll never use.
Right.
I know that's confusing, but that's kind of like, that's part of a bigger plan. People look at retirement as investing. Investing's the easiest part of this. Figuring out what life you want to live, figuring out your tax plan, figuring out your giving plan, all that, that's where it gets more challenging. But you've done well, and you can make it all happen. It's just a matter of designing the plan and then executing on it.
And putting in the documents in place to have it work out.
That's part of the design.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, really what I want you to take away as a message is you did well and you can do what you want.
So no matter what happens, I'll be okay. If I don't have a job, I'm okay.
I mean, I can never say no matter what happens. I mean, look, Warren Buffett is like, what's his biggest worry? He's like, nuclear war. I'm like, well, at that point, all right, we're out of luck. But under normal life, I mean, the money wise, if you're working, it's because you want to work.
And I do.
Okay.
And I'm going through a transition. So some days I don't. Mm-hmm. But for the moment, I do want to work.
Yeah, you are what we would call work optional at this point. If you want to move to Arkansas, you want to start doing the school stuff tomorrow, great. If you want to, switch to another job, awesome. If you want to keep working, fine too. Here's the thing. Every dollar you're earning right now is going to your estate, which may not be the priority.
And it's not.
Really, the test I'd say with my clients is, would you do the job for free? And would you?
No.
Well, then you shouldn't do it. Because what happens, you get so stuck, like, I'm making this great paycheck, I'm making this great pay, great. Well, you just had that kind of life moment that kind of shook you up and like, what's the point? If you woke up after that and were like, hey, I really enjoy my work, I really want to keep doing it, awesome. That's not what you're saying. I'd be saying, hey, how about you create a plan that, by the end of the year, you've retired and are living in Arkansas next year.
I hear you.
How does that feel?
Frightening, scary.
Why?
The unknown. I hear, I've got the savings, I've got the investments, I'm going to be okay. But there's still that moment of changing identity, I guess.
Yep.
The fear of doing something different. The thought that maybe I need to give my job some more time because I am learning and I do like to learn.
And that's all fair. And that's actually normal. So we normally meet with our clients on a monthly basis. And it usually takes about 6 months for them to kind of really get that these numbers are real, the plan is real, that they're going to be okay. And then their brain kind of flips and they're like, oh, well, then what am I if I'm not, in my job? What's my identity? What's my life? Okay, cool. Then you get through that. And then they're like, oh, I can do whatever I want. But it takes kind of 6, 9, 12 months for people to shift their mindset because they're like, oh, well, I was going to retire at 67. Well, there's no reason to wait. Like you're doing all the normal stuff. It's the kind of growth pattern that goes with it.
I guess, what if I change my mind? I'm concerned with what if I do this and I decide to travel the world and incur additional expense than what I originally planned? What then?
My guess is we can run the numbers, but you could probably do another 20 grand worth of travel every year and not impact your numbers much.
Wow.
That's my whole point. I was like, hey, you work the rest of this year kind of getting the plan in place, because what'll happen is once you feel comfortable that you can retire, then all of a sudden your brain's going to be like, well, maybe Arkansas isn't the right, I don't know. You might question that. You might question but your brain shifts. And then it's like, well, I would like to, great. And then we start running out with that. I've had some folks, one of my favorite things to do, a lot of child-free folks don't want to like sit on a beach and retire and never work. You were like, hey, I want to learn or do different things. Some people will do it. We call it an encore career, do something where they're learning something new, growing. But what we often do is we'll say, okay, how about you work that job part-time, half-time, and every dollar you earn there goes towards your travel budget. And they're like, wait, so I could do this job, learn something cool, and then get to travel more? Like it gets you up in the morning and gets you thinking in a different way.
It would. It definitely would.
And it sounds like that might fit you. Like something that was a little bit of a challenge where you were learning something that gave you a little bit of fun money.
Sounds ideal. Yeah.
So why not do it? Yes, you'll be making less per hour than you made at this job, but that's the point.
What was going through my mind is, okay, but I'm earning so much now, and it's like, if I had.
Do you enjoy it? That's so what I want you to do if you're going to do this encore career is you pick something you would do even if you don't get paid. But we get you paid anyway. I joke around because I have a lot of folks want to be librarians. I don't know why, but you want to be a librarian. You don't make a lot of money, but you enjoy it.
I did think encore being a tax preparer during tax season, and then not have to worry, do everything else off tax season.
And by the way, if you want to do tax preparer, man, there's a whole lot of people that need it. Like, I mean, it's not an issue to find work there. And then you work seasonally. So you work for 3-4 months and then you go travel. Take that money and that's your travel money. That'd be awesome.
It would be. It would be.
And that means maybe you do less schooling during tax season. You do full-time schooling in the fall and you travel in the summer. I'm just making that up, but that's probably a pretty cool life.
Sounds cool and incredible. Gets me excited with the possibility.
So what's happening is everything you want to do is an option. It's a matter of kind of which option works. How does it fit with your brain? How do you feel comfortable with it? The questions you were asking about annuity, all that, that's not To me, the annuity is probably not the right answer, but it's also not the right question. The right question is kind of, what do I want to do with the next half of my life? Yeah, and then how do I make sure I have the structure to do that?
Yes. How do I make sure I have the structure to do that?
We've already had a couple goals. We've got some goals for your brother. We've got some goals for giving. We've got some goals for learning. There's some goals for kind of life for you that, kind of have to figure out what that looks like. There's a goal around moving. Great. That's all just part of the plan. You build that up. And then the biggest challenge is going to be getting past your own brain. Like, can I really do this? Like, am I okay?
And also, I come from a family that worked until they died. So the thought of not working, but I'd still be working part-time, it just doesn't seem right to stop having a job so early.
Yes, we call it the head trash. This is the stuff that just says, and we all have it. But the question is, for those family members that worked for life, were they happy? Often the answer is no. Would you be happy if you just worked till you were dead?
If I like what I'm doing, it would be.
Okay, so that's doing something else. So we got to figure that out. We got to figure out
It's had, and that fear continues to come up.
Yep. And that's where so when we do these checkups, you'll get the full report, and it's got some things to optimize in your finances and all that, and everything we just talked about. The real challenge is working through that head stuff.
Yes.
And that's where I'd suggest, whether it's us or someone else, working with a professional who understands how things are different because you're child free, and saying, okay, let me work through this head trash so that I can go live my best life. You spend the next 6, 9, 12 months kind of working through that stuff so that 2026, this time next year, you're enjoying your best life. How does that feel?
Exciting and scary at both.
That's fair. So I've given you a lot of information. What questions do you have for me?
The trust service is what still intrigues me.
Yeah, we're not launching that till the end of the year, so I can't give you all the we're finishing the regulatory stuff on that, but I can come back to you with that.
Because that's what if I become incapacitated? How am I taken care of? And being without children and a brother that's not good for anything but medical decision. And it's not that he's not good for anything, but financially, I don't trust him with money.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we built this service. Is there's so many people out there just like you, whether they have family or don't trust them, whatever it is, and they're like, I don't have a next of kin, so who does this for me? And we're essentially acting as their next of kin. So I saw in here, you might consider a cat. Like the question is, all right, now you're incapacitated, who takes care of your cat? Like it sounds like a silly question, but that's a hard one. It's all of the other pieces that people don't think about. It's more than just, how do I manage the money? The money's actually the easier part of it.
Okay. For you, for me mentally, it's not the easy part of it.
So here's the thing. The money management stuff of it, it's an algorithm. There's a math equation, there's a system. There's a plan. How do we make sure you have a good life in the second half of your life if you're incapacitated or other things? That's harder. So I had somebody, I was on a podcast and he said it this way. His mother was in the nursing home and she's 90 something and she loves chips. And she asked the nurse for chips and the nurse is like, no, you can't have them because it's going to mess up your diet. He's like, she's 90 something. Just give her the damn chips. It's not going to destroy her. And his question was, who makes sure I get my chips?
That's a great question.
It's probably the most simple question, but it's so hard to answer because that's the quality of life stuff. So there's a lot of work. You're technically called a solo ager. There's a lot of work on solo aging. Actually, May 14th is International Solo Aging Visibility Day. There's a whole bunch of work on how do we help solo agers. And that's why we created this child-free trust product, is so that we can be the ones doing it for them. Now, that doesn't mean literally I'm going to your house and mowing your lawn. It means, we're going to make sure somebody does that for you. But we had to build it in there, and we had to build a system so that we get all of the stuff in your life that matters to you. The estate plan, like the will, is the easy part. It's like, and what are your real wishes? What do you enjoy? What matters to you? And how do we make sure you get your chips? And what are your chips? Like, what is your version of that? And that's why we're building this. I spent 3+ years working on this project to try to figure out how to do this because it's a giant logistical nightmare.
Trust can happen even if I'm not incapacitated.
Yes, you can voluntarily go into it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it either way. It's because some people are like, yeah, you know what? So we have a great example. We have folks that are like, I'm going to go travel the world and I just don't want to worry about my stuff. Take it over. And I'm like, that's actually brilliant. Like, send me an allowance to spend on my travels and you handle everything. Makes sense.
And it's doable.
Yeah, it is.
And it's reasonably priced.
Yeah. So the way we're doing it is if you buy it on its own, we charge $100 a month and then we charge hourly for whatever hours we actually work. We've partnered with a trust company that's doing the work. The hourly is $250 to $275 an hour, but most folks are under 20 to 30 hours a year. So rather than paying a percentage of your assets, you're paying for what actually is done. If you have more work that needs to get done, you're going to get billed more hours, but it just depends on what you need.
So I was reading on trust and tax forms, but there's tax forms that have to be sent out
Yep. That's part of what a trustee does. But the way it works is while you're alive, the trust exists, but essentially it's you. And by the way, I'm trying to simplify it because it can get kind of real confusing pretty quick. But in that type of trust, hey, all of the income is just passing through to you. It's not a big deal. When you pass, the trust becomes an entity on its own, pays its own taxes, and it actually pays at a higher rate than humans. But that's just part of the process.
And factoring in that higher tax rate because it's a trust, the plan is still feasible.
Yep. And what actually happens is the trust is only paying taxes on any growth or income. So what you end up doing is you can plan it so your brother or the charities get the growth or income. Then there's no taxes.
Then I'm going to get off the trust. So how do you invest? You make the investment part sound just mathematical, easy.
Hey listeners, like what you're hearing? Don't miss a thing. Sign up for the Child Free Wealth newsletter for weekly tips, tools, and podcast updates. Head to childfreewealth.com/newsletter to get on the list.
So the way we like to invest, we do a 3-fund portfolio. So we invest in the whole U.S. stock market, the world stock market, and some bonds. And what you do is where you keep the investments matters. So for example, you want your international to be in your taxable brokerage. Your fixed income will be in your bonds and things like that will be in your IRAs because you want to optimize around taxes. And then what we do is when the question is like, well, what do we live off of each year? We make decisions at the end of the year of what to sell and which around tax time it makes sense to sell. Because remember, you're now going to get issues as you get older and you're on Medicare. Now we get IRMA surcharges and other fun things. So once a year, we make decisions on what to sell, how to pay the least taxes for that period and through your tax plan. And you just set it and forget it.
Is that once a year decision at the end of the calendar year, or is that?
It tends to be kind of twice a year we look at it and saying, hey, do you need money? But really, we try to do the sales at the end of the year. The reason is because we know your tax situation for the year. If you're working that other job, how much did you make off it or whatever else it is? But the investments, it's invested for the long term. Long-term passive investing works. We want to keep your finances simple so your life can be amazing.
So does that mean you invest in 3 ETFs, one international, one U.S. stock, and one whatever that?
One bonds. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And what's happening is right now you have a bunch of individual stocks in there. And the downside of that is if you pick the wrong stocks, you missed it. That's one of those problems.
But that's why I have an advisor.
Yeah, but
stocks.
But even then, if you look at the data, actively managing, buying and selling stocks in the long run does not beat long-term passive investing.
Yes.
Okay. But what happens is advisors do the picking the stocks because it looks like more work and, they can charge for it. Seriously, investing's the easiest part of my job. Set it, forget it, and let it grow.
Dealing with clients is the hard part.
Well, actually, it's it's the mental stuff around it. It's all that stuff that's in your head of like, well, can I really do this? Can I forget? Like, it's that stuff. That's where we really do our stuff. So for example, with child-free clients, one of the questions you're going to get to is like, what is the legacy I want to leave? And what is the impact I want to make? And, the question we ask, like, what's the second line of your obituary say? Like, there's a lot of things around the way we think about it that's different. That's on the life side, on the behavioral side. The finance stuff, that's the easy stuff, which, the challenge is right now you're working with a firm that just charges you for the investment that doesn't give you the rest of the stuff. So that's where they spend their time. But to me, simple, passive, long-term investing, the data says that's the way to do it. You don't need to be more complex than that.
Interesting.
So we need to wrap up. Do you have any other questions that I can answer?
So have you written a book on this mind stuff?
Yeah. So the Child-Free Guide to Life and Money, the first half is all about the mindset. The second half is about the finance. So that's what it is. And then I'd encourage you to work with somebody, so in our checkup, it'll have how to work with us if you want to work with us. But we purposely, what we try to do with clients is work on 1 to 2 things each month, because otherwise it's overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah. Let's be real. We just talked about 10 things. Well, okay. That's going to, some of it will sit, it'll take time. You work on 1 or 2 things in a month. You make 1 or 2 changes each month. And at the end, you're like, hey, I want you to get to a point where like you don't think about your finances and you just live your life. We call it Simple Finances, Amazing Life.
Changing 60 years of thinking finances is hard.
It is. And one of the challenges is for child-free folks is I have to unlearn kind of what the standard life script says. You go to school, you get married, you work for 25 years, you pass the money to this generation, like have kids. It's all like the American dream. All of that has to be unprogrammed and reprogrammed. It takes quite a bit of time to work through folks with that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it's one you can do on your own. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work. But that you just said you love learning. So here's your opportunity to learn how to think differently.
Yep. Gonna go buy the book. Start out.
Yep.
The trust piece does intrigue me, and how to set up the trust to take care of me does.
Yeah, there's a few things on that. We'll set it all in the report. Like there's a couple different things as you design this. How to get you comfortable with it is going to be the challenge. The paperwork on it takes a little bit, but it's not too big. I still have a few questions about kind of like how you would do it with your brother and how you want to do that. That would tell, which way you do that. But the bottom line I want you to take away from it is you've done well and you have choices.
And no matter if the market does get worse, I'll more than likely still be okay based on historical trends.
Yeah. If we get to a point where, we're worried about guns and ammo and we're no longer using the dollar, okay, we're all out of luck.
Yeah.
But based on historical, I'm not too worried about it. I always joke about it, but my job is to tell you when to be worried and when not to. And I look at your money unemotionally, and it takes a lot for me to get worried because
I appreciate having another person look at it.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available, or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Child Free Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.